I'm Claire Mike. I'm Director of Business Development and Technical here at Leaf. Oh, it's the first time I've introduced myself with my new full title. And I'm delighted to see you all here today. Today, I am so thankful to be able to speak to some great colleagues and also some colleagues of our Leaf Innovation Centre network as well. I've got Carl Edwards, who's Leaf Director of Education and Public Engagement. And we've got Simon Thelwell, Strategic Director of the School of Sustainable Food and Farming at Harper Adams. And they're going to share some of the learnings and outcomes from a really significant piece of research undertaken by Leaf and the School of Sustainable Food and Farming and McDonald's, exploring the perceptions of young people, that's 12 to 19-year-olds, regarding 4 key themes: careers in the agri-food industry, how they are as future conscious consumers, their understanding of and interest in sustainable agriculture, and what we can do better to promote diversity and inclusivity into the agri-food industry. Moreover, Leaf Open Farm Sunday, farming's annual day showcasing the best of British farming, happened last weekend, and we've also incredibly delighted to welcome Annabelle Shackleton, Leaf Open Farm Sunday manager, to also share some of those highlights too. So we've got a bit of a double-decker today, I'm delighted to say. As usual, please do post your questions in the chat function. And just to note, this is our last session of the year, so we'll be taking a break for July and August and resuming the Leaf surgery again in September. So just before we get started on today's Leaf surgery, I thought I'd take a few moments just to reflect on our last surgery year. Philip Wynne, Leaf Chairman and Acting CEO, opened our surgery year last September with some reflection and noted our intention to embark on the search for our new chief executive. And just a few months ago, we were delighted to announce the appointment of David Webster, who will be joining us from this September. We moved on to delve into the theme of technology and novel foods and growing methods, and we considered the role of cultured meats and vertical farming and how they might play a role in global food security. And then Rosemary Collier took us on a journey with IPM, or integrated pest management, unpacking how natural predation could be used very successfully across a range of enterprises. And we're hearing some really great stories about how habitat creation and the encouragement of biodiversity is also going hand in hand with that IPM and those natural predation approaches. Then in December, we had a surgery special where we explored the role of advice for farmers and growers and the huge difference that it can make, whether it be suggesting new ideas, challenging the status quo, giving confidence to test and trial, or perhaps just to explain the how and why. After a hugely successful Leaf Annual Conference held at Stoneleigh Abbey, we explored the topic of biodiversity net gain, and we heard from farmers successfully putting it into practice as they looked at enterprise stacking, for example, and building resilience into their farming businesses. And then we went on a journey to net zero with Professor John Gilliland of the Arc Zero project based in Ireland, and that project supported by Wageningen University, and it was fascinating to hear what they're doing there. And then after launching our new and vibrant Leaf Mart logo, which you can see there behind me there, we reflected on data governance and the role that data will have in our global food production transition. Then we were visited by Nature Scott, who shared some insight into the Scottish agricultural policy and moving forwards. And then finally today, whilst reflecting, as I said, on last weekend's Open Farm Sunday, we are also here to share some of the highlights of our teenager research. Before we get started on today's Leaf surgery, we would like to take the opportunity to pay tribute to Jack Thomas, a young farmer, Harper Adams student, and McDonald's progressive young farmer who tragically lost his life earlier this week. Jack played an important role in the teenage research journey, and we're so proud to have worked with Jack. The Leaf education team are grateful to have spent time getting to know him. We will remember Jack with great fondness and send our heartfelt condolences to his family and friends and the wider Harper and progressive young farmer communities. there is support through Harper Adams University for anybody who needs it, so please do get in touch. So we're going to move now to reflect, as I say, on last weekend and just have a little bit of a delve into the magnificent Open Farm Sunday. And I'd love to welcome Annabelle at this stage. Annabelle, hello.
Hello there.
Annabelle, we're going to get straight in there. What was your favourite part of Leaf Open Farm Sunday 2023?
Wow, how can I sum it up in one favourite part? You know, it has been phenomenal again, which is just brilliant. Firstly, just having the opportunity to meet farmers has been amazing. So actually meeting so many farmers in our breakfast meetings, through our Zoom meetings that happened in the springtime and over Easter, then getting closer to the event in the run up to it. Last year, we managed to secure some television broadcast coverage after the event, but it's always our aim to get some beforehand. And wow, absolutely delighted that on Channel 4, Steph's Packed Lunch did a fabulous feature on Leaf Open Farm Sunday. So to get onto national television was great. Also having Open Farm Sunday part of the Archers storyline, absolutely amazing. But when it comes to the events itself, just seeing the passion of the farmers, that they're just so dedicated to their job, and the storytelling has been amazing. The first Open Farm Sunday event I went to was a buffalo farm near Rugeley, actually the Sunday beforehand. So that's one of my messages, that Open Farm Sunday doesn't have to happen on the day itself. The majority do, but a few happen on other dates. I learned the lady there, they'd only taken over that holding 6 months before Open Farm Sunday. It was their first Open Farm Sunday event. And her farm walked for about 30, 40 people, and she just constantly did them during the day, as and when they got enough people together, a group together. I learned so much about buffaloes, absolutely amazing. That experience was wonderful, and being able to taste the cheese and the meat was just phenomenal. My husband and I, we actually had an argument who was going to eat the last piece of buffalo cheese last night, so there we go. But the storytelling at MHS Farms on their safari tour, tractor safari tours, amazing. Martin just did such a fantastic job talking about how farmers are working to link with the environment and regenerate the environment. And Martin at MHS and Will at Hampton Estate Farms on this last Sunday was just phenomenal. He managed to explain regenerative farming and why they have sheep grazing on their hops field to a whole bunch of 4- and 5-year-olds. It was absolutely phenomenal, brilliant. And then, of course, if you've seen on all our social media, read the press release or seen our mini highlights video, actually getting support from Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Edinburgh, our honorary president, was just phenomenal. But yeah, and just, you know, absolutely great. Over 250 farms took part, over 170,000 visitors went out onto farm, and farms across Britain were just full of the laughter and chatter of people connecting with farmers, engaging with farming. Just wonderful.
What a wonderful picture to paint, Annabelle. Thank you. Annabelle, you've been doing this for a little while, may I say politely. What's changed? What's changed in your experience of Open Farm Sunday?
Well, one of the things about Open Farm Sunday is that every farm is unique, and so each Open Farm Sunday event is unique. So that hasn't actually changed, but they just evolve and develop, and people's ingenuity and imagination that goes into the events just blows me away every event that I go to. I mean, down at Hampton Estate Farms, we actually had Her Royal Highness having a go at hop stringing. I'd never seen that activity at an Open Farm Sunday event before, so that was just tremendous. And also sniffing lots of different jars with different things in, because they were talking about the aroma of the hops. So yeah, just amazing. But of course, since lockdown, with the cost of living crisis, people are much more concerned about, and also the obesity crisis, people are much more concerned about doing their bit to try and eat a healthier diet, to cook more from scratch. They're genuinely interested in where their food comes from. And so, you know, that is fantastic. And from a farmer's perspective, you know, we're using ticketing services more and more at events so that farmers, that when I first started managing Open Farm Sunday years ago, that was the biggest concern from farmers, was knowing how many people were going to be coming to an event. But of course, we're using the digital ticketing services now, which takes that unknown away. Yeah, so lots of things changing and evolving, and of course digital communications and being able to, we'd still provide those printed materials for farmers, those resources, the printed handbook, but we're providing more and more digital resources, because of course so much communications happens on a digital basis now as well.
Thanks, Annabelle. I've got visions of you sniffing jars now. I know you're going to find this so hard, Annabelle, but could you distill it down, your experience down to one favourite memory of 2023?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I remember the feedback that we get from families and farms, families who visit farms, is always just fantastic to read. And I remember once that a mum was sending in a message to say that the fact that they had just walked past a cow that actually splat and pooped as they were walking past, and the sound of it, the whole family giggled, because Open Farm Sunday is an experience. You see cows on the television, but to actually get up close to them and to see how big they are, to hear the sound of them, is amazing. But of course, on Open Farm Sunday, we had a professional photographer, we had a professional videographer, we had Her Royal Highness on this amazing tour, seeing you know, the John Deere machinery, meeting the vet, doing all sorts of different things, as I said, hop stringing. But of course, while she was meeting the vet, the cow did manage to do the most almighty number twos. And that was just one of those moments that I will never forget.
That's brilliant. Never work with children and animals, apparently.
Exactly,
So.
that's what they said.
What can somebody interested in doing the event in future do, Annabelle? What's the best route that they can take to find out more and get on board?
Well, we have lots of information on our website, farmsunday.org, and then there's a section called Open My Farm. If they go into there, there's lots of information, but there's also a couple of bullet points right at the top. The first one says, take a look at our information pack, but the second one says, if you're interested but not ready to register, let us know. And there's a link there where you can enter your details and we'll contact you. But the main thing is, you know, if you want to talk with someone now, if you're keen to get the ball rolling, there's contact details for myself and Tabitha, the team, and also we have a team of Leaf Open Farm Sunday ambassadors. We've all got stacks of experience, happy to talk through what you've got on your farm and what you could potentially offer as your story for opening for Open Farm Sunday, which of course next year is the 9th of June 2024. So either fill in that form online or just send in an email, give us a ring and we'll have a chat with you.
Thanks, Annabelle. And is there any other advice you can give to anybody considering it? You know, if I think, you know, I might be concerned that the event might get too big and out of hand, or that people might not be interested and not come along, and anything else. Do you have any hot tips for anybody right now?
Yeah, use a ticketing service because it just helps you manage the numbers. Start smallish. You know, we have some farmers that actually start small and wanted 250 to 500 visitors. For other farmers, that's huge. So, but yeah, really, you can adapt Open Farm Sunday to suit you, the resources that you have. If it's a small farm walk for 30 people on the Sunday morning, that's absolutely fine. So yeah, so it's just make sure that you organise something that you're comfortable with, and do sign up early, do register as soon as you're sort of 95%, 90% sure that you think that you're going to take part next year. Register your event, because then you'll have the team contact us, you'll receive our e-newsletters, you'll receive information about the training support that we have available for everybody.
Thanks, Annabelle. And finally, would you like to say thank you to anybody for this year's Open Farm Sunday?
Oh, most definitely. You know, to all the farmers who have taken part, we are just wowed by the enthusiasm, inspiration, dedication that you've just all demonstrated on Open Farm Sunday. To the hundreds of helpers as well. It's not just the host farmer. There were teams of family, friends, business advisors, support from, you know, across the whole industry. But of course, we've got our sponsors. We really couldn't do it without our sponsors. And in a leaf surgery, this is one opportunity where I am going to list them all, to our supermarkets, Asda, Co-op, M&S, Sainsbury's, Tesco's and Waitrose. You know, long-term supporters of Leaf Open Farm Sunday, amazing. NFU, just absolutely brilliant, the support we've had from the communications team there. Arla Foods, who do so much for their farmers, and AHDB that offer resources and again support for their farmers. There's a lovely podcast, blog on their website from their chair of their dairy board who did Open Farm Sunday again, I think for the 10th time or something amazing. Frontier Agriculture, John Deere, support from DEFRA and our media partner Farmers Weekly. You know, all of them have been in partnership with us for so long, and we really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Annabelle. Yeah, already looking forward to next year, as I'm sure you are too. So now, Carl, I'd love to turn to you, and we're going to shift the lens a little bit onto the teenager research now. Carl, can you just walk us through what research was undertaken and why you did it?
Of course, thank you, Claire. So over the last 12 months, actually now, we've been working with Simon and his team at the School of Sustainable Food and Farming, and Harriet and the McDonald's team and the PYFs. And this came at the back of 5 years ago, we did our first ever piece of research to really understand what young people thought about our industry. And actually at the time, it was focused on careers and interest in entering our industry. And we always felt that that research was brilliant. We had lots of actions. We delivered on every single one of those actions. But it was time to just have a look and delve deeper in some of the challenges we were seeing in society. And as you said, Claire, at the start, it was a chance to talk to essentially 2,500 young people we've worked with over these last 12 months, whether that be online surveys, whether that's in-school workshops, online workshops, on-farm workshops, or our wonderful residential back in April at Harper Adams. And the whole point was actually understanding what we are hearing about young people as future consumers, about society. Actually, what do they think about sustainable agriculture? Are they even aware? You know, are they looking for sustainable food products at shop floor level or in restaurants, for example? Do they consider themselves as those conscious consumers? Actually, careers, are they getting any information about the agri-food industry? Is it something that's a passion for them that they want to enter? And of course, how do we allow more diverse voices and inclusivity into the agri-food industry? What's working really well and what can we learn from and what could be done better? So essentially, that's what we were doing. And we as an organisation and with many of our partners are often working with young people. And it's important that actually we ask young people what they want to know, how we can change some of their misconceptions and to actually see what they hold in great value as well. And ultimately, we've done this on behalf of industry. We see the results, which we'll be launching in a couple of weeks' time, the full report, that they're there for retailers to listen to, they're there for brands to listen to, but they're equally there for the individual farmers that maybe are looking to engage, and wider still across the agri-food industry.
Thank you so much. Sorry, I forgot I was on mute. Thank you so much, Colin. It really is a very exciting piece of research. So thank you. Simon, I'd love to bring you into the conversation now, if you don't mind. Why was it important for the School of Sustainable Food and Farming to be involved? And what were you hoping to achieve from the research?
Well, thank you, Claire, and thank you for inviting me to be part of your surgery this morning. I'm delighted to be here. Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're thrilled, and we have been thrilled to be part of this project alongside Leaf Education and McDonald's. And the university, Harper Adams, made a commitment really to look at sustainable farming going forward into the future. And the vehicle for that is called the School of Sustainable Food and Farming, which I hope some of your listeners might have come across. So the school, essentially, just as a brief introduction, is a commercial partnership between the industry and Harper Adams. It's funded by McDonald's, Morrison's, the National Farmers Union, and subsequently a number of other retailers and food companies as well. And really, the key thing about the school was that it was set up to help the industry try and grapple with this whole concept of getting to net zero. And we all know that there's lots of challenges for the industry in terms of how we're going to do that. There's lots of different targets, 2030, 2040, 2050, and there's some confusion in the industry about how that happens. One of the key sort of components of the school, and one of the key areas that we thought was super important, was a pillar that we call new talent. It's very much about how we encourage the brightest minds, the most entrepreneurial minds to come into our sector. And this research was absolutely, fundamental really for trying to understand how initially, 2,000 young people, I guess, mainly from non-rural backgrounds, actually think about the industry, think about the food that they buy, think about sustainable farming. And it was really important for us that we understand and get that baseline, because otherwise we don't really know how we're going to approach them, how we're going to work with them going forward in terms of both Harper Adams, but also the industry. I think it's absolutely critical. And one of the things we have to remember is if we think about the net zero targets for agriculture, if we're thinking about 2040 or 2050, we're thinking about 25, 30 years into the future. Those students that are 10 years old in a primary school at the moment are going to be absolutely critical for getting our industry, whether that is agriculture, which we obviously hope it is, or the agri-food industry. But you think about the energy sectors, you think about the logistics and distribution sectors, which are both equally challenging in terms of net zero. There's some really big challenges, and we need to get those scientists, those mathematicians, those data scientists, as well as I'm sure that the very attractive careers that there are in energy and logistics, distribution, etc. We need to get those bright minds into agriculture. That's really critical for us.
Amazing, thank you so much. And okay, so were you pleased with what you saw as a result?
I think when you mention the word pleased, I think it's a sort of it's a game of two halves for me with that question. I think it wasn't surprising to me when we did the questionnaire. Some statistics like 94% of young people don't really understand the opportunities that are available in the agricultural industry. That is a really surprising, it's a surprising number, but it's not a surprise to me that that is the case. I think to me, understanding that most 16, 17-year-olds have made a decision, on what their next steps are at the age of 16, it perhaps was more of a sort of a wake-up call to us, really, because as a university, we often talk to that sort of age group in terms of those that are making decisions around future career choices, whether that's A levels, whether that's BTECs, whatever their apprenticeships, whatever their decision making is. But actually, what's quite interesting is that we maybe need to start that journey a little bit earlier in that process to try and get them thinking about, where food comes from, what, how it's produced, and therefore linking that back to the agri-food sector and the great careers and opportunities that we have in our industry. So that's the sort of, those sort of statistics that we had from the questionnaire initially, I think were a little bit shocking that, there was some quite big statistics saying that people hadn't really heard of agricultural careers or understanding where food comes from. Again, not surprising, but a little bit sort of concerning for us. I think my optimism grew massively when we get the opportunity to actually show young people what the industry has to offer. And to me, that's the real crux of where we are right now in terms of how we do that. We obviously brought 100 or so of those students to the university back in April for 2 days. And they had a range of different experiences on the university farm and with our academics here at the college. And, at the end of that, Carl did some amazing statistics with the PYF, some questions which asked them, whether their perceptions of the industry had changed. And overwhelmingly, I think that the results were, Carl, weren't they, that 83% said that their opinion of careers in agri-food or the opportunities within the agri-food sector had changed. And I think that's incredible. You know, we even had some people saying, you know, how could they come to Harper Adams as a university, which of course was incredibly pleasing. But I think, you know, for us, that's the crux of the matter, isn't it? It's great to get 100 students here and show them what we have as an industry, but how do we do that more widely is the bigger fundamental question, I think.
I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, if you don't mind, Simon. If I could do similar to what I did to Annabelle, I just want to unpack that weekend a little bit, because it's quite fascinating that you would take teenagers on the weekend. Do you have a highlight that you remember from that weekend that was, you know, just has stuck in your memory ever since?
Well, it wasn't actually a weekend. It was in the week, Claire. Sorry.
Oh, it wasn't a week. Yes, sorry. I beg your pardon. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, for me, it was just, well, I think the results bore out what I saw, which was we had one of our lecturers did a sheep exercise with the students where they actually got them to round up some sheep and try and, you know, understand condition scoring and to tip them over and check their teeth and look at their feet. And, you know, you might say, well, you know, it's one of those experiences, I guess, that a lot of those students that were here had never had before. A bit like Annabelle said about, you know, seeing cows on TV and in you know, newspapers and magazines, but you don't actually get up close to them. And it was fascinating to see how those students interacted with those sheep. You know, that's the one thing that really stuck in my mind. And just the questions that they had really about, you know, I think one student actually said that they hadn't seen grass that was as green as we had in our fields, which was like a really bizarre statement. But you know, I think that's what we need to unpack a little bit more and understand is that, you know, a lot of these students that are, you know, based in cities or centrally in cities don't have the opportunity necessarily to see these things. So for us, it's that experiential learning that's really important. Oh, sorry, Claire, I think you're on mute.
Sorry. I'm sorry for putting you on the spot there a little bit.
That's all right.
So is this the end, Simon, or is there more to come? What happens next?
No, certainly not. I mean, we hope this is really the beginning, and I know Carl and I are discussing where we go from here. I mean, obviously we have the results being launched in a couple of weeks' time to the industry, and we hope really that the industry does, I guess, take notice of the survey and the results that we have, because no matter, you know, how hard Harper Adams tries with our outreach teams, and we have a great outreach team here who go into schools. We have over 200 schools that we talk to regularly, some rural, some not so rural. You know, the industry really needs to help as much as possible. And what you know, Carl and I are really excited about, I don't know whether Carl wants to talk through some of the recommendations, but one of the areas that I'm very interested in is something called the Industry Collective, where we are hoping to get as many companies as we can together to actually offer opportunities to young people, whether that is going into their local secondary schools and talking to students, or whether it's the opportunity to invite students onto their farms, onto their processing sites, into their businesses, to actually see what is happening and experience that firsthand. You know, it's very difficult to try and you know, get 16-year-olds or 15-year-olds to engage in anything really, I guess, that doesn't involve something that, you know, in terms of the food production particularly, is quite difficult to get them to engage in that. And we know the challenges that businesses have with things like work experience for those 15, 16-year-olds. Sometimes that can be a real challenge. But we're hoping that through this process, we can perhaps get them to think differently, or to try and do things a little bit differently for those students that need to experience agriculture and the food industry firsthand.
Thank you, Simon. Well, I'm going to pick up on something you mentioned there, actually. So, Carl, can I come back to you a minute? Simon mentioned recommendations there. Would you like to walk us through that at all?
Yeah, thank you, Claire. And I think just to add to what Simon said just then, actually the school where the students came onto Harper and said they've never seen grass this green, and I'm sure it was a comment on how brilliant the lawn was in front of Harper Adams, but actually that was the school that then said, how do I get to come to Harper Adams University? So within those 2 days, that's how quick if you have that opportunity for experiential learning, and one of our recommendations is that we need to increase that experiential learning, and it needs to be across the whole age range. Industry does a wonderful job at connecting with those primary age young people. Absolutely fantastic. Open Farm Sunday does a wonderful job of connecting those young families. You know, that's who we know the audience, but we can't stop once they go on to secondary school, and there are still those opportunities, and we need to be working with them there. So that is absolutely one of our recommendations. But also what was really exciting for us was actually half of the young people that we worked with said they would consider a career in the agri-food industry. So from not knowing anything about the industry to actually half of them then saying, you know, we are really keen. And as Simon said, it as that industry collective, it's how do we provide collectively come together to provide young people almost with the 12-month work experience piece, because that's what young people are coming back to us and saying, this is what we want. We want that opportunity for short-term work experience where we can see all the different sectors of industry, and to have that experience to then be able to potentially enter a land-based university, for example, agricultural university. Another piece that young people have come back with, and part of the recommendations, is actually they're telling us that they believe and trust and value brands and retailers, and they believe that brands and retailers are making sustainable food choices on their behalf. And that was brilliant to see, actually, that trust and the perception that they feel that as a society we are making the right decisions. But they also said that they're going to very soon start to hold the brands and retailers' feet to the fire, because actually they're saying it's wonderful that retailers, for example, are reducing plastic. It's wonderful that we're planting more trees, but they're coming back and saying, but these are pretty basic and things that we should have been doing for a long time. So how do you empower me as a future consumer, as a conscious consumer, to make those choices, either at a restaurant level or at a shop floor level? So one of the recommendations is actually to look at youth advisory panels, which we've started to discuss as to how that would work. And one of the things that young people have said very clearly, and I can promise now that we have not set this up and it's come back as unbiased, is actually they are starting to look for logos on packaging that represent environmental sustainability. They said food miles great, carbon footprint great, but actually we want to look at this in the round and we want to see environmental sustainability. And they said, wouldn't it be wonderful if there was a green type logo out there that could go on packaging? They thought, oh, leaf mark, yes, that's wonderful, you can see it on Claire's screen. So that's interesting to then unpick that and unravel that, but that's certainly something that we're seeing. So it's that opportunity to empower young people. 3/4 of the young people we worked with believe that the agri-food industry, actually what we do is sustainable, and we have a commitment to the climate crisis. I mean, Leaf has been around for 31 years. You know, we have been delivering this. This is not something that the agri industry is suddenly waking up to, a climate crisis. We have been aware of this and trying to solve those challenges and be prepared for those challenges. So yeah, some really, really interesting pieces. I won't give too many of the recommendations away because we are going to launch it wider in a few weeks' time.
Brilliant, thank you so much. And if I could invite the audience to post any questions in the chat function, that would be brilliant. Thank you so much. So yeah, Carl, is there any, do you know where that will be published? Will it be through the Leaf Education website, etc.?
Yeah, so we'll have a big landing page on the Leaf Education website, and also on there we will have the final report, but also the opportunity to pledge support to the research as well. So we want to hear from individuals and organisations and how you can get involved, and we've put those recommendations in, but equally there's that free form opportunity to show how you collectively will help with delivering the research, and we'll share that.
That's absolutely wonderful. Thank you. And yes, Annabelle, would you like to say something on careers as well, please? That would be great. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, apologies, sorry.
No, it's fine.
I totally agree with what Simon and Carl have said. We've got to link through and get those messages out there and inspire everyone of all ages. And what I love about Open Farm Sunday is that it gets the parents there. parents and their children. So hopefully when the young children come home from school and they say, oh, I'm thinking of going into the farming industry, we don't have the parents saying, oh no, I wouldn't do that, you know, you can get a better job somewhere else, because they've been to an Open Farm Sunday event, they've seen the science and technology involved, they've seen how passionate people are, they've seen the careers, opportunities, and hopefully it will mean that they say, that, you know, that they actually say yes. And if I can just and support their child to go into the industry, if I can just read one of our visitor comments, one sentence from it, a lady up in North Yorkshire who went to an Open Farm Sunday event near Thirsk. She said the children loved the event, left feeling totally inspired. My little boy has not stopped talking about looking for baby cows using the vet scanning machine, and my teenage daughter thinks she may want to go into farming when she leaves school. I mean, what a result is
Isn't that
that?
marvellous?
Absolutely brilliant. And last year we actually asked in our visitor survey, did any of you come away feeling inspired to start a career? And 49% of people who responded to our visitor survey said that someone in their group felt inspired to look into and investigate careers in our sector. And we do know that, you know, people have started apprenticeships following visits to Open Farm Sunday events. So it's everything. It's the school visits. It's the you know, it's just every opportunity. We all need to do our bit. But I'm delighted that Open Farm Sunday is playing a huge part in that.
Yes, and you're absolutely right. It is completely interconnected, and yeah, so yeah, just some marvelous stories there. Robin in the audience, can I invite you to pop your camera on and speak? I'd love to, yeah, hello. Welcome. Robin, I'll let you introduce yourself, but it'd be great to hear what particularly you're interested in. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, have the floor.
Yeah, so I'm the community regeneration lead for Nestle. So it's a new role that we've created actually just this year to really dial up our sort of community impact as an organization. But yeah, I've spent the last 8 or 9 years with First Milk. We developed our sustainability program with them, which is both environmental and social. So we've been doing school visits. We've encouraged Open Farm Sundays, although it's not been as successful as I would like, but that's something that we need to continue to work on. But we're doing a huge amount of work around working with local schools, working to try and encourage young people into the industry as well. So I'm very very interested in, and it's not just in the UK, globally. We're looking at, we've got, it's a Nestle term, we call it agripreneurship, but how do we get young people all around the world to get more actively involved in agriculture specifically, and so whatever programs that we can get involved in and support, we are keen to look at those. So yeah, just I would love to follow up afterwards to see you know, all the Harper Adams work and the recommendations and what we might be able to chat through. Really, that was it. Brilliant.
Thank you so much, Robin. And that's my new favourite word of the day, agripreneurship. Thank you so much for that. Carl, I don't know if you want to just respond to that, but of course we can get in touch with you afterwards and see how we might work together.
Absolutely. And thank you, Robin. And I think actually something as part of our recommendation actually is encouraging a more international voice into the work that we're doing with young people. You know, we can't produce all the food in the UK. Our system is global, it is international. And actually that's really interesting for young people. Yes, they want that connection at a local scale, absolutely. But equally, they want to hear from an international point of view. I was reading an article not that long ago about 2 sisters born in Zimbabwe, moved to Birmingham, lived most of their life in Birmingham, and then have now gone back to Zimbabwe and set up this wonderful farm. And I'm thinking, these are the people that we need to be talking at international level to understand. But equally, as Robin said, actually, I've been talking to a lot of our international partners who are saying, look, we're challenged with young people aren't interested in coming into our industry. You've got it sorted in the UK, haven't you? And then when we share our challenges and they go, oh, you're in the exact same boat that we're in, there's so much we can learn from one another and all those opportunities to really add value to what we do collectively. So yes, Robin, I will be in touch.
And your point about young people, you know, wanting to hold brands' feet to the fire. I mean, we see that, and it's right. I mean, we need to be held to account about what we're doing. But our marketing teams now, for the first time ever, and I'm quite encouraged, is that they're learning all about this. They're learning what we are doing, but they're also learning what we can and can't do in terms of greenwashing and communicating it. But to be able to tell authentic farmer stories and the farmers themselves talking about it is something that particularly the Nescafe and Kit Kat teams have already really picked up on and started to work with. But so yeah, I think there's that. All of this kind of fits together very nicely.
Yeah, those young people want to know that the choices that they are making are having a positive impact. They don't want to be told that you are making, they want to feel empowered that they have made that choice to have that positive impact. So yeah, brilliant.
Great, thank you.
It's so true. And I have 3 young people in the house that I live in, and they hold me to account. So, we've got a lot of hope from the future generations. And they are constantly questioning my purchasing decisions. So good for them. And so that draws an end to our last surgery of the year. And it's just been so enjoyable. And thank you all for being with us today. I'd like to extend a huge thanks particularly to our audience that joins us month in, month out. We really do value our interaction. So thank you so much. Thank you to Simon. Thank you for giving this your time. Thank you for the participation through the School of Sustainable Food and Farming and everything that Harper do. And Carl, thank you for sharing the perspective from Leaf Education. And Annabelle, thank you so much for sharing some of the highlights of Leaf Open Farm Sunday. And like I say, we're all ready to go out again next year, all excited and fired up. So that just leaves me to wish you all a very pleasant few weeks. And we will see you all again in September. Have a lovely weekend. Bye-bye.